We're running a coach survey, but it's 20
Nice to meet you.
Karen Kirkham, hi there.
And you're
Dr. Kirkham.
Dr. Kirkham. Oh, and you're.
I'm the Assistant Clinical Chair.
Oh, you're assistant clinical chair. Thank you. I'd like to present you with this letter here too, and a petition. So if I hand this over to you.
Is it just top bit?
Well, you can keep them if you don't want. There's a lot more, and also we've got how many folders here?
6 folders.
We've got 6 folders here.
The one carrying got 6. Did you want to do a photo somewhere and we'll stand somewhere?
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Do you want to just come in front of the group?
We're happy to do that. That's that as
Yeah,
well.
you're happy. That's great. Just if you come forward a little fraction, just so you're not writing, just over here.
So you're not lost with us.
That's great. Thank you.
I've done this before.
That's okay. No, we don't mind doing it. We don't mind doing it.
All right. Okay. Yeah, that's it. Okay. Okay, super. Straight and lovely holiday.
Yeah, I've done that.
One more like that. Lovely. Great. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, you're welcome to keep it if you want.
Well, no, go hand them in. We'll keep them.
Well, today we handed in our petition to the CCG and we had 8,048 signatures from Purbeck residents, probably about 6,500 and the rest from visitors.
What was established is that we have sufficient signatures for in excess of half the electorate within the Swanage area.
People feel very strongly that because we're at the end of a kind of corridor on that peninsula, we will not be able to get to Royal Bournemouth through Bournemouth, the most congested town in the UK, within safe guidelines. The guidelines for stroke, major trauma and maternity emergency are actually only 35 to 40 minutes. We would struggle to get to Poole within 40 minutes, and we certainly won't be able to get to Royal Bournemouth within the golden hour even. So we feel very strongly that we need to maintain services at Poole, and if there is only going to be one major emergency hospital in the east, that unfortunately we would rather have two, but it needs to be at Poole because more people can access it by the CCG's own statistics. They show 74% can access services at Poole in 30 minutes, only 69% can access them at Bournemouth, and all can access services at Poole within 56 minutes, whereas for a tranche of people they can't even access services at Bournemouth within an hour.
We've had a great deal of success and a lot of support from local people, and last night we had support from the Swanage Town Council, who felt that the CCG questionnaire didn't ask the right questions and didn't provide enough information. So they're going to be putting their point of view in a letter, and hopefully it will add some weight to what we've done in Swanage.
When the consultation comes back, whether we've been listened to, and we'll also be looking at the GP, what's happening about the GP proposals. As we know, back in October, November time, there was proposals to close a third to two-thirds of GP surgeries. They've been withdrawn after a public outcry and an outcry from health scrutiny. But, what is going to be tabled about the GP? Will there be any consultation? So we'll be looking out for that. And continuing to fight for Poole A&E, of course. Paul Kimber at County Hall has been speaking out very much so and campaigning with us on behalf of the Labour group. Cherry Bartlett, our Swanage Dorset County Council candidate, has been out with the petition and is here today. She's been on the radio with me this morning. I'm afraid there is a bit of a deafening silence from the Conservative side. It is the Conservative government who are implementing these cuts. There's no need for these cuts. We've, of 11 comparable countries, the UK spends the least on healthcare per head, so it's nonsense to say we can't afford it. If we run the same, France spend 20 billion more than us, and Germany spend 30 billion more than us if you work it out on a per head basis.
Well, I'm joined in the studio now by two Swanage residents who helped to set up that petition being handed in today, Cherry Bartlett and local Labour Party activist Debbie Monkhouse. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Cherry, I'm going to start with you. You have concerns about this move of A&E provision from Poole to Bournemouth. Can you just explain why?
Well, I feel that the people of Swanage, particularly Swanage and Wareham, are really concerned about the extra time needed to travel to the Royal Bournemouth Hospital, and it would delay their treatment for medical, obstetrics and trauma emergencies. It's beyond the recommended guidelines, and it puts their lives at risk. It could be fatal at the end of the day, or life-limiting. Many people, when signing the petition, shared their stories of lives being saved by going to Poole A&E, and I think this is so important.
And actually, Debbie, we spoke to you on the show previously. You have COPD,
yes.
And I mean, you feel like this. I mean, particularly for your case, this move could be dangerous for you.
Yes, if I had a respiratory arrest again, obviously the longer it takes to get to hospital treatment, the more dangerous it would be. But basically the point is where we are in Swanage, we're on a peninsula, and we'd have to travel through Royal Bournemouth, the most congested town in the UK, through Bournemouth, the most congested town in the UK, to get to the Royal Bournemouth. And even by the CCG's own calculations, that journey takes 50 to 60 minutes. If you think the golden hour includes the time it takes for the ambulance to come, and that in some emergencies, maternity, trauma, acute stroke, the guidelines are actually 30 to 45 minutes, we will never get there within the guideline time. You know, it's impossible.
Yeah. I mean, we were just to reference there, we were talking yesterday about the problems on the UK's roads, and Bournemouth in the top 10 there, I think it was number 7 maybe, but it was the only town in that top 10 list. What about the situation with the cottage hospital in Swanage, Cherry? There are some concerns about that and the changes that might have on the community?
No, actually, Swanage Cottage Hospital isn't under threat at all. It's Wareham Hospital that's under threat. Wareham Hospital is threatened with closure, which means we would lose 16 beds in the area, and we all know about bed blocking in the hospitals. These beds are full. CCG said, it's people from out of Dorset, but that's not true. We have... And
I mean, to be clear, those beds in hospitals like that, and the hospital that we were talking about in Shaftesbury a moment ago, these are non-emergency beds.
Yes,
I think the CCG is trying to do more kind of care closer to people's homes in those instances.
Absolutely.
But Debbie, you have concerns?
Well, it's very difficult to see how closing 6 of 13 Dorset community hospitals, all their beds, is going to bring care close to home. We were at Swanage Town Council meeting last night where they were looking at these proposals, and they decided that the consultation, they couldn't fill it in because it wasn't fit for purpose. They didn't have the information that would enable them to fill it in, because there's no financial information about how this supposed care in the home is going to be funded. There's no evidence that care in the home is any cheaper, and it's very difficult to see how closing all our local community hospitals and beds is going to bring care closer to home.
Something has to change, though, doesn't it? I mean, it was only yesterday we were hearing about the deficit that the NHS is running up, and it's these are big numbers. We have an ageing population. People are living longer with chronic conditions. Cherry, you mentioned the issue of bed blocking. I know that's a fairly unsympathetic phrase, but it's a truism that there are people in hospitals who perhaps should be being cared for elsewhere. And the CCG is just trying to make sure that the taxpayers' pound is being spent as efficiently and effectively as possible.
The CCG are committed to saving this 229 million per annum, but the government can spend money on corporation tax cuts. If they didn't cut corporation tax, we would have a lot of extra funding. The HS2, bombing foreign countries. but not on the NHS. And
so your complaints are almost more with the way that the NHS is funded than with these proposed... I mean, you don't approve of the proposed changes by the CCG, but you'd like to see more money in the NHS.
Well, the proposed changes are basically part of a government mandate to save 22 billion across the country. Dorset's portion is 229 million. And the point is that we've got the lowest per capita spend of 11 comparable countries in this country on the NHS. So we're not overspending on our NHS. And we've got the second lowest number of hospital beds per head in Europe. It's nonsense. It's a decision where the money is going to be spent, and the decision has been taken it's not going to be spent on our NHS. That's why we're facing these problems all over the country.
We have the CCG live in the studio with us on Thursday morning. We'll put some of these questions to them, and of course the consultation is open for another week. If you want to have your say, then you can do that online. Dorsetsvision.nhs.uk is the URL for that. Debbie, Cherry, thank you very much for coming in this morning.
Thank you.
Debbie Monkhouse and Cherry Bartlett's campaigning in Swanage against those proposed changes to Dorset's NHS.
BBC Radio Solent
with Steve Harris.